Hello and welcome on into Objectively Biased, episode number 12. I'm John Tortorelli with River Brown, and today we have a lot of goodies to talk about. All-star starter reactions, the Orlando Magic getting back a healthy Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, the ascension of Amen Thompson, a rising star in Houston, and then last, we're going to kick gears into draft season by discussing one of my favorite draft prospects I've gotten to watch, as Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. Riv, how you doing today?
Oh, well, big day for me, man. You got the Bills playing tonight, Philly playing in about a couple hours. Big day. This could cement my legacy over there and pick a side, man. You know, if the Eagles and the Bills make the Super Bowl, my legacy is secured. I'm here. But we had some good hoops yesterday. Um, like you mentioned, been watching a lot of Jeremiah Fears this year. Been
Mhm.
excited to see what he could do and how young he's been. I'm just excited to talk ball today. Feeling good,
Absolutely.
feeling
It is
blessed.
a career-defining weekend for you if the Eagles and Bills both win. Now, we're going to start off with the All-Star starters because this last week they're announced for Eastern Conference. We have what I felt like was pretty fair. You have Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then Karl Anthony Towns at the five. Do you have any major gripes with that side?
It really is just Cade. I thought Cade should have started. I thought he did
Mhm.
enough to start, and I get the starting is like 25% fan votes and
Yep.
players and whatnot. So I get all that. Fans are a driving force in starting because that's how another guy that we're going to talk about in the West got in. One of my guys, but in the East specifically, I thought excuse me, I thought Giannis was fine. I thought Cat, with the way he was playing this year, definitely deserves to be a starter. I thought they got the three front court players correct. Tatum,
Agreed.
too. Those are the three best front court players in the league this year. And then for the guard spot, I feel like Donovan Mitchell just this season changing a little bit of his play style in terms of just taking a back seat. He hasn't confidently been the best player on his team this year. And that's not to say I don't think he's overall the best player. I do think come playoff time, I want to make that be known come playoff
Mhm.
time, walk into the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell needs to be your best player. He is your best player. Teams are game planning like he is the best player. But this year, he hasn't really needed to do that or needed to give that 28 point per game, them scoring off puts, them electric nights on a back to back because of the fact Darius Garland has been so great, Evan Mobley has been so great. So I thought him being the starter was, kind of I knew he would get in because of fan voting, but I thought it was
Mhm.
odd, considering the fact that, you could put Cade in as a starter. Jalen Brunson can get the nod over there. You could even make the argument Garland probably deserves a spot over Donovan Mitchell this season, just talking strictly what we've seen so far. But that's really my only gripe. Donovan Mitchell, who I think he's still putting up a pretty good year, 23 points a game. I think 5 assists, 5 rebounds, if I'm
Mhm.
rounding out properly, but shooting a scorching 40% from the 3 point line. So he's still extremely efficient. It's just, he's been taking the back seat at times where, and even back to back games, him and Garland have combined for 60 plus points. They did it against Philly, where they both had 30 plus
And
points.
last night.
And then last night against Houston, another great banger game.
Mhm.
Garland damn near had 40, and D Mitch had about 33 a game. So these two have been on a heater together, and I loved what I've seen from the backcourt.
I'll be honest, and I think this is kind of one of my proud moments. Darius Garland should have been an all-star starter. This year, he has been one of the most impressive guards in basketball. 64% true shooting while going 50% from the field, 43% from three on 7 attempts a game. And then he's at 88% from the foul line, 21 points, 22, and then 7 assists. I feel like this year at this playmaking and that clutch play in the fourth quarter, last night he had 14 in the fourth, 27 in the second half. This year, he's been the more deserving all-star candidate, and that's really not to dismiss the attention, the added pressure that Donovan Mitchell gets. But to me, I felt like if any year Donovan Mitchell should have been an all-star starter, it would have been last year. It would not have been this year. And taking a step further, I agree where Cade Cunningham as well did have a better case, but you can acknowledge the Cavaliers being the number one seed. And before last night, they had the best record in the NBA, that they did need at least one all-star starter. But I kind of do agree that I feel like they got 4 of the 5 spots, right? Because this has just been one of Donovan's less impressive production seasons, I guess you could say, but that's not to take away his overall case. Now in the Western Conference, we have Steph Curry, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Kevin Durant, LeBron, and then, of course, my guy Nikola Jokic again. So I felt like the one player that a lot of people have a lot of qualms with is Steph making it this year because His minutes per game, his points per game have not quite been there. It's his lowest points per game since his breakout year in 2013. But the one case that Steph has is that he is far more efficient than almost any other guard. De'Aaron Fox, a Devin Booker, Luka's not gonna qualify, same with John Morant. And at first, I did find myself surprised that Steph made it to a degree, feeling like he was grandfathered in. But when you really look at the efficiency, and I know last night, I don't know if you watched the game, I don't know if you're checked out right now, it wasn't his best performance. I'm not too mad about Steph making it, but I do see some other cases for guys like De'Aaron Fox or an Anthony Edwards, more notably, who I felt like Ant-Man was probably a better case to make that all-star starter spot.
Yeah, I'm also like I don't have a gripe because I understand how the starters work. I think Steph, I even think also LeBron to a degree got grandfathered in because
Mhm.
I felt like Victor should have been a starter this year, with the way he's been playing, and he's a front court player. And I do
Yep.
think Kevin Durant has been playing at a better level than LeBron this year. I do firmly believe that. Um, but yeah, with Steph, the efficiency is always going to be there. Right now, I did watch the game last night. He's dealing with a broken hand or a messed up hand at the moment, so that is also another injury we have to deal with, along with the knee tendonitis all year. But yeah, Steph's had a down year in the sense of the situation around him is terrible. Also, he's not playing to the best of his ability. He's also dealing with a bunch of bad injuries right now. So I can understand the idea of Steph's not starting. I feel like if Luka was healthy, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because Luka would probably be the starter along with SGA. Other guys like Ant-Man, Fox, I can see the argument for sure. I can definitely see them being the starter. I'm surprised that Houston doesn't have a starter in a sense of kind of the same, similar arguments to what you have for Cleveland, where Donovan Mitchell obviously is a household name. He's much more popular and notable than anybody in Houston, but you have the production isn't there. Play is still there, but the production obviously has dipped because of the guys around him and the bench that they have. And you still put him in the starter because they're one of the best. They're probably the best team in the league right now. Well, top three for sure. Houston, is on a tear themselves, and you have two guys in Sengun and Jalen Green who have kind of been leading the charge along with Amon Thompson. So that's probably the gripe where you see a lot of Houston fans are expecting why not a start. I've seen some guys, talk about James Harden versus Steph and why is James Harden probably not going to make the All-Star game and Steph is. I look at it as this. When Steph's on the court, I think he's like a plus 15 right now. When he's off, they're atrocious. They're a bad team now, but they turned into like one of the worst teams in NBA history. So that's probably his one, and of course the efficiency. But I don't see an issue with Steph not starting. I didn't have him in my starters when we did our All-Star starters.
Mhm.
I felt like he is still an All-Star, but to say he's one of the 5 best players in the West, I think that's strong this year.
Right. I definitely have more issues with LeBron making over Wemby because Wemby's been a better player this year, and LeBron has not, for the first time in his career, been a huge positive for his team.
Yep.
And for Wemby to put up four blocks, 4 assists on the improved efficiency, 25 a game, while the Spurs defense has been average because of his presence mainly, because they've had a lot of injuries this year, from Shohan and Vassell to even their backup guard play. It's been a revolving door of a supporting cast. And yet Wemby has that Spurs team hovering near 500 solely because of the fact he is a top 10, top 15 player for sure. So I felt like KD was deserving, like you said. He has the same exact production as years past, and he's got the games played as well. But I felt like the only thing that I would change in the Western Conference is just swapping Wemby for LeBron.
Yeah. I don't hate it. I would have swapped Steph and Wemby, but I understand. I would have swapped Steph and LeBron, but I get it.
Right. Now, one player around the NBA who's been ascending this year is Amon Thompson. Back-to-back wins for a Rocket team against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're second right now in the Western Conference. Amon last night posted a 20-point, 14 rebound triple-double. And at this current moment in time, in his last 9 games, he is averaging 18 points, 4.5 assists, 3.5 stocks, and 12 rebounds. My question for you is, when we talk about Amon coming to the draft, he's probably one of the most unique players we've seen in recent NBA history. What exactly is his upside and how far can he go? Because I watched him in games last night where he gives me shades of Ben Simmons in his play style, but he reminds me of a far more athletic version of him that maybe is going to be more aggressive. And is he a bit of a Sean Marion type of way? Now, I'm curious, how far and how high of a ceiling do you think he has? And really, what's that mean for the Rockets this season and their growth?
Yeah, okay. So, you got to talking about. I don't know if it's amen or amen. It's really confusing sometimes, but they both sound cool. So you got to go back to watch him in OTE, man. You know, he and Drew brought this up. I want to give credit to Drew because Drew brought it up, and it was something that I completely forgot about. In OTE, he was a primary ball handler. He was the lead guard on the team. It was him and his brother, but he was the main facilitator, playmaker. He ran the show. To get drafted to Houston and kind of have to completely shift your game to a lot of off-ball stuff, a lot of playing off the ball, being in a lot of actions without the ball, you know, being able to move on the court, positioning yourself for be that young and be able to be so good at it this early is truly a special growth. Now you mentioned a couple players. I've seen a lot of Sean Marion, Andre Karolinko. I've seen some Gerald Wallace comps, some Ben Simmons comps, guys who do a lot of the dirty work on the offensive end and the defensive end and get theirs in spurts. I think Amon is such a peculiar unicorn of a player because those players that we mentioned, those were their primes. This kid is 21 years old and he's already doing what they are doing in their primes. He's doing that in year 2. So you ask me, what's the ceiling for this kid? I mean, I don't think anybody knows. I think that's the beauty of it. I don't think anybody can, you know, you can obviously, you know, make a guess. If you're lower on the jumper improving, you can call him this. You know, if you're higher on the jumper improving, you can call him this. But in reality, he is a guy who you really cannot project on because of the fact that he's already seen insane growths in his game from year 1 to year 2. You know, he's already upped his level, upped his play, whether it's a starter, whether it's a 6-man, it doesn't matter. Not to mention he's his moxie and the way he's infecting other guys when he starts. I mean, when he starts, Jalen Green plays his best basketball.
Yeah.
Like that's been very known when he starts and he's in the backcourt with Jalen Green. Jalen Green or in the front court, wherever you want to put him in, because honestly, he can play 1 through 4.
Mhm.
Wherever when Amon is starting with Jalen Green, you have seen Jalen Green play one of his best basketball. So for me, Amon, it's all about the ball handling and the jumper. How good can it be? And how good can that ball handling be? Because I feel like sometimes he moves faster than the ball. He's very fast, and I don't think his handle has caught up to his speed just yet. I don't think it ever will because he's so freaking fast. So it's really about tightening up that handle. You know, downhill, he's already a demon at that. But in the half court, can you be a little bit more savvy? You know, can the jumper be a little bit more sticky? Can he fix the mechanics of it? You know, I know he's attempting the jumper more this year when he's open. So that's something you love to see. You hate to see him not have confidence in his work ethic, but he seems to have confidence. He's taking that jumper. But everything else is there. The instincts. I would love for him to, you know, just continue to get smarter as a basketball player. You know, I see people say, you know, they would love to improve his IQ because he works on instinct too much. But I feel like sometimes it's a hand in hand thing. Like for you to instinctively know where somebody's going to be on defense or where the ball is going to be, that's also having some form of IQ, in my opinion. So I think for the Amon, I can't even tell you the ceiling. I feel like the sky is limitless for him. I feel like we kind of have a ceiling for Jalen Green. We have a ceiling for Sengun. To a degree, we have a ceiling for Tari Eason and Cam Whitmore. Amon is the guy on that roster where you're like, I truly don't know what his ceiling is.
Yeah, you touched on, and I find this very interesting, the dirty work offensively. During this stretch where Houston's been playing some great ball and they're peaking at the right time, he's averaging 4 offensive rebounds a game. And that game last night, even when he's sitting in the corner and he's not a threat, there's possessions where Ty Jerome would be defending him and he wouldn't even move outside 10 feet. And then Amon's driving and he's hitting a flip shot kind of in a tough spot for 2 points. What stands out for me is that Amon still finds ways, despite not being a modicum of a floor spacer, to make power plays for his team. 4 rebounds a game as a perimeter player offensively is absurd. That's up there with some of the best offensive rebounding and rebounding bigs as a whole. They take it a step further in transition, where he's averaging 4.5 assists a game. He is just a power play machine who makes the right passes. He makes the hit aheads. He pushes in transition. And until that shot comes along to a point where defenses can respect it, he's an elite finisher at 72%. He's got the touch. He has the explosiveness. And that first step really gives him the opportunity to get by his man, make tough contested traffic, and kind of beat the center to a spot. So when I watch him play, I get shades of Ben Simmons and what he's limited in the fact that he's not going to be someone who opens up the floor off the ball. But I can't quite compare him to any player in NBA history because of how gifted he is athletically. and then how smart he is. If anyone questions his IQ, when this is someone who's thriving off the ball without a 3-point shot, I think you got to watch more Rocket games because, quite frankly, he makes all of the right plays. He's always a step ahead, and he very rarely makes the wrong decision off of a split second read. So, quite honestly, he is the future in this backcourt. And like you said, Jalen Green plays his best basketball because there is a great fit. And that's part of what made it such an appealing draft fit when it happened 2 years ago. And quite honestly, the difference to me with Amon Thompson, any other player from that draft class, and I think his brother is all defensive material too. Right now, he's one of the two best perimeter defenders in the sport with Dyson Daniels. Those two guys this year have been so great on that end of the floor. You could put them in the all defensive first team. And I know that it's shifted to be positionless at this point, but quite frankly, what Amon has done this year off the ball, the amount of ground he can cover. There was a play last night where I forget the player. He has an open layup. And
George Niang.
Niang. He's underneath the rim. Amon's in the corner. He rotates maybe 12 feet in the span of 1.5 seconds in a split second, and he spikes that shit into the 12th row. And that's something that he's done almost night in, night out. Of course, the on-ball defense and then how much ground he can, how much space he can cover. It's part of what makes him such an unique gift for Ime Udoka because since he came here from Boston, the goal has always been we're going to be a defensive first team and we're going to win there. And quite frankly, with Dylan Brooks, but now Eamon and Tari Eason, I mean, the Terra Twins have really been next level this year for them on that end.
Yeah, and Cam Whitmore has also been playing really well too when
Yeah.
he's got his minutes. So that's something you love to see from this young group. But yeah, like the only comparable athlete to Amon is his twin brother, who might jump higher than him, which is the scary part. And people, and I agree. I've always, cause I agree on this sentiment that I've heard that Amon's clearly better than Nassar, only because I've always felt that way when I watched them together. I've always felt that way, even when they were in OT. So now Amon taking this ascension a year two, I understand. I want to also give Asar some leeway because he was dealing with the blood clots, and he had Monty Williams as a coach his first year. So you gotta give him some leeway there. But you saw Asar in his rookie year, rebounding machine, defensive instincts are there. So they're like the same player. It's just offensively, I trust Amon a little bit more with the ball. Asar's a little bit more loose with it, but yeah, man, we've seen Sean Marion, him be a defensive dynamic wing who can guard 1 through 5, but he wasn't as athletic as Amon. He wasn't as fast. We've seen Gerald Wallace with his instincts on defense, not the same athlete. We see Ben Simmons, probably a much bigger, stronger 6'10" frame, but he's not the same speed. He's not the same athleticism. So like it's truly hard to grab. Like Amon has Penny Hardaway size with John Wall's speed and jumps higher than Zach LaVine and John Morant. So like this dude is built in a lab. So it's very, because you watch guys like Jonathan Kuminga, right, who still struggle with that defensive IQ and knowing where to be on defense, and still struggles how to use his athleticism to his benefit on defense. A lot of times when you get those raw prospects coming out, they struggle with that. Amon doesn't seem to miss a beat.
It's perfectly said. And quite honestly, for Houston, you talked about before, they have one All-Star in Alperen Şengün, but the discussion is starting to become who the best player and who the franchise faces there, because I don't know if the box score will do justice to the impact that Amon's making on a night in, night out basis. Now, we're going to talk about a team that last night had a great game versus the Pistons with Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero recently coming back into the lineup, both of which had oblique injuries. Now, the Magic found themselves at 500 without their two best players for half the season. They've been still a top 3 defense, second opponent's points a game, third in defensive rating, but their offense during this stretch has fallen to 30th in points per game. Now, last night, Franz and Paulo both cooked. K didn't have as much help, and Detroit fell to the Magic. Magic are now the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. I'm wondering, because I feel this way, and I want to know where you stand. Yep. Can the Magic be a real threat to win a playoff series this year now that they have their two pillars back into the lineup?
I think so. I think they're going to rely a lot on that defense to kind of cause havoc. Banchero's been trying to find his stride lately. He's definitely trying to get back in rhythm, which I'm more than ready to wait for that. You look at the East, and it's really Boston And then everybody else, you have the Cavs, you have New York. I think they'll put up a strong fight. You have Milwaukee, who's still hovering. I do think every team has their little weakness. I do think the Cavs need a wing defender. I do think that New York needs a rim protecting big. I think Milwaukee, their defense is good right now. It's getting better, but I still think they're going to need a stopper in the playoffs. For Orlando, it's just about consistent shooting, and I think that's always been a thing for them. But I do think they have the potential to be a playoff buster. And what I mean by that is upset somebody in the first round who people may not think they could beat, or make a second round, maybe make an ECF. I think this team is talented. I think this team has a lot of belief in themselves, and I think this team could go on a run. What if they do have an Indiana Pacers like run? What if they do, make a Miami Heat like run? Obviously that's one in a million, but they got their guys back. Suggs is coming back. You got Franz back. You got Boncaro back. Get that continuity together. Start making a run. I do believe in the talent of this team. I think just it's unfortunate because the Cavs have jumped straight up. And New York is playing really well, and Orlando got hurt at the wrong time, so they didn't
Yep.
get to have the same time to gel. But I'll put them as the fourth best team in the East if healthy. I do think the Cavs are a little bit better. No, I think they're a lot better with their bench being high scoring. Their starting five being one of the best fives in the league, and then they have the best
Right.
player in the series. I do think New York is better just offensively, how potent they are with Jalen Brunson in that series. But I think they're the fourth best team. I think I'd take them over Indiana. I'd take them over Miami. I'd take them over Atlanta. I'd take them over the Pistons because they're in the playoff race now too. But Orlando is a sneaky team.
Absolutely. Now, last night they both, Paulo and France combined 7 assists each, 32 points each, 9 boards for Paulo, and just immediately took control of that game, getting
Yep.
downhill, talking shit to Isaiah Stewart. They got into a scuffle afterwards. I love that, to see Paulo really be that kind of, I guess you could say, he's going to talk a lot of shit. And that's what I want to see him be more extroverted, more kind of confident and projecting that out. This year, he really got off to an amazing start at 30 points a game. And then, of course, he had that injury, dropped 50 on the Bucks at one point. Now, the one team that I think Orlando, this is the biggest question mark, is if whether or not they're better than the Bucks. The Bucks recently have jumped and improved into a top 10 defense, and they have Giannis and Dame. They have a good amount of role players like Gary Trent, Torian Prince, Bobby Portis, who are improving and playing better. So that's the team, and maybe a 4-5 matchup right now. The Bucks are the 4 seed that I think is really the most likely opponent that Orlando would see in the playoffs. But until we get to that part, I want to ask you more about that in a moment. To me, it's quite clear when Paulo and Franz come back, everything else falls into place, right? This has been a down year for Jalen Suggs, dropping from 40 to 31% from three, and we know why. He's had a lot more responsibility, a lot less opportunity to play off of those two wings who create a lot of open looks. And the same could apply for a player like Contavious Caldwell Pope, who signed his 3-point percentage immediately plummets to 31% as well. Tristan Da Silva, all of these role players, and some of them are souped up like Jalen Suggs to be a role player plus. They need to play off of those wings. And when they're not in the lineup, it makes their lives so much more challenging because you're asking them to play a role that they're not equipped for. They don't have the skill sets for. But of course, when you have Franz shooting the way that he did last night off the ball and Paulo attacking downhill, they didn't even have Goga Batadze, who's been, to me, their best center this year. And he has been arguably their most consistent player at that spot the last 2 years. But for Franz to go 4 of 8 last night from the 3, perfect 8 of 8 from the foul line, and then, of course, his playmaking as well in just his second game back, it really does show that there is that untapped potential for this duo to play off of one another if his 3-point shot falls the way it did. Because early in the season, we saw he only had 5 games to Apollo before he went down, and it's only their third year playing together. So right now for the Magic, I do have them as a team that can win a playoff series. It just comes down to, honestly, the biggest X factor being Franz Wagner shooting. If he's making the shots in the high 30s from 36 to even 40%, I absolutely think they'll have enough of a collective gel to fit together and beat a team like the Bucks in the first round. But if his shots are not going, I think you can quite clearly look at the lack of spacing, like you highlighted, and say the Magic still need to have more skill development here.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love a Bucks versus Orlando series. I do think Milwaukee would have the two best players in the series in Damian Lillard and Giannis.
Sure.
I mean,
Dame over Paulo?
walking in. I mean, Dame's having a pretty great year himself,
Yes.
and unfortunately, Paulo missed a ton of time. So I don't want to say that's like concrete. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, if you want to go Paolo based off what Dame did last year, I understand it, but I think Dame, I still give him that respect. I think they're in the same tier at this point. So like
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. But Giannis is the clear X factor. He's the clear best player in that series. So that one's gonna be tough. I do think stylistically, that's a grudged, slow pace, nasty back and forth on the
Mhm.
defensive side. I really do like that series. I think if they're gonna upset somebody, it's gonna be Milwaukee. I would love to see Cavs Magic round two. Like, why not be stuck at the eighth seed and go against the Cavs again? You played them pretty well last year. Um, yeah, I'm even intrigued. I'm intrigued by any matchup with Orlando. Even Orlando, Indiana, I think will be really fun. Two
Yeah.
completely different ends of the style spectrum,
Yep.
going clash to clash, high end offense versus potent defense. Where would that be? But I think Orlando, you're riding high on if those shooters can hit shots because you know what's going to happen. Paolo's going to see two at the ball. You're going to see condensed paint for Franz. Shooters got to shoot. Shots got to go in.
Perfectly said, because they have not been falling at all. Orlando this year is 30th in 3-point percentage. You want to guess what they're shooting from three?
Give me a ballpark. That's just a,
Um,
a wild
well
number.
below league average. That's your ballpark.
Oh, okay, as if I know the fucking league average. Let's go with
36%.
they're like 25 then.
No, they're dead last in 3-point percentage. What do you think you think they're shooting 25% from three?
Yeah, I'll go with 25% because you made it seem like it's that bad.
Whoa. 25% from three might be an NBA history worse. They're shooting 30% flat from three,
No, it's 5% off.
and they're dead last in 3-point makes.
Yeah, you made it seem like it was at 25%, so I thought that's why I guessed.
I mean, that basically means you'd have a team full of Lakers, Russell Westbrooks. That's like your average shooter. That would be. I'm
That's a
sorry,
funny
Russ.
team.
Russ is hooping right now. I don't mean disrespect him. He actually shot better. He shot 30% with the Lakers from three. So like, I don't know.
Essentially, yeah.
Take like Amon Thompson, like his 3-point shooting on 2 more attempts. That'd be
Yeah.
the 25% average.
That's not. I think the shooting will go up though, slightly.
Right.
Nothing crazy. They
Oh
just
yeah.
don't have. They don't like outside of KCP. Nobody's legitimately a shooter. Like, Suggs still has to prove himself to be a shooter. He shot the three ball really well last year,
Mhm.
and I think he can shoot it. But I don't think we give guys the tag of shooter till you do it consistently.
Right. Gary Harris is one of those guys who has been in the past, but he's not on the rotation. And then one of the biggest losses this year that's not been talked about is Mo Wagner tearing his ACL, because he's been a 6-man of the year caliber big
Yep.
with his energy, his kind of peskiness, he's one of the most annoying players in the NBA. And that's a really nice thing to have on your side. But then offensively, he's one of the most productive as well. 13 points a game and 18 minutes a night is absurdly good and absurd production for a player that has always had to play a niche role for them. And I think losing his spacing, 36% from three, that's another player in there who really was able to hit shots. Now, I want to stay on this Bucks point real quick, because this is a team this year that there's not too many that fit into this criteria, that they're not a top 10 offense. And an offensive rating, they're not quite there. But when you have Giannis and Damian Lillard, you consider that to be a high-level offense. Their defense this year has been better than the offense. They're ninth in opponents' points per game, and they're eighth in defensive rating. They had a tough loss last night to the Clippers. Clippers are playing some good basketball. I think they're a super underrated team in their own right. My question for you would be, with Milwaukee's defense starting to improve and show some signs of life, do you feel like they've been overlooked as another team in the Eastern Conference that can make noise?
No, and I understand why. When you have the Doc Rivers curse looming over you as a head coach, it kind of paints a different narrative. Like it travels with you. It travels with you for some time. But I think this year's team is different. I think Giannis is carrying that defense hard right now. I think he's been, and this is why I still think he's been the best two-way player in the league, just because of the
Mhm.
fact of what he can do defensively as a rim protector and as a help side defender. He's carrying that defense hard right now. If you've been watching Bucks games, offensively, I do think they'll get it going. I think Brook Lopez can still give you something on a defensive end, so that's good because they don't have a ton of perimeter stoppers. And I've seen some number, if I'm not mistaken, where they hold on. I seen it. I seen it. It's coming back to me. It's coming back to me. Yeah. Nope. Didn't find it. But at the same time, I hate this. At the same time, I like the Cavs have been so good this year. New York's offense has been so elite this year. Boston, I know they've been struggling, over the past month or so, but they're still Boston.
Mhm.
I don't know if Milwaukee's in that tier, but I think, when you have Giannis, who's one of the three best players in the world, you have Dame, who's playing at a high level again, anything's possible. I think you go into a series, you're confident in Dame and Giannis. And then if that defense is real, if it's a real legit defense, you stick on that defense, make games slow, make games really, really, really slow paced, which is kind of what the Bucks are. And then you kind of just go in there with those two guys and kind of, play your cards right. I think Milwaukee is getting overlooked because of the fact that their offense isn't what we thought it would be.
Mhm.
We thought with Giannis, with Dame, a bunch of shooters, this would be a top five offense at minimum. And it's not that right now, but their defense is taking a stride in the right direction. That's something you want to see.
Now, you touched on the Knicks, and you're confident the Knicks are the better team. If these two teams play in the playoffs, New York and Milwaukee, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who in the playoffs gets to the foul line 12 times a game the last couple of years. He's been someone who puts your best bigs in foul trouble. And if you don't have an Al Horford or a Marc Gasol, Draymond Green, maybe, even though they never played, caliber post defender, he's someone that's going to put your bigs into foul trouble. On the
Yeah.
Knicks side of the equation, Mitchell Robinson was supposed to come back a month ago. Still not played yet this year. And Karl Anthony Towns is having a career year, arguably, but he's somebody who in the playoffs routinely finds himself picking up costly fouls early in games. If the Knicks and Bucks matched up, I'm tempted to take the Bucks because I believe Giannis will put Cat in foul trouble, take him out the game, really get rid of that rhythm he's had all regular season. And
Hmm.
then on top of that, defensively, like you highlighted, you have Giannis, you have Brook Lopez in that front line. They don't have a whole lot of perimeter defense, but if Cat's out the game the close, why can't the Bucks upset a team like New York in the first round?
Yeah, I look at a world if Milwaukee and New York matched up where you start Mitch, you start Cat, you have OG, you have Mikal, you have Brunson, you have, or yeah, no, you have Mitch, Garden, Lopez. OG, you can start on Giannis, have him, start the wall up. You
Right.
have Mikal on Damian Lillard, and then you kind of just live or die by that. But then again, because Tibbs is gonna play his guys 40 minutes anyway, so you don't have to.
Bro, they were up 25 last night. He had Cat in the fourth quarter. And then
Yeah,
Cat's taking tough falls on like the cameraman. He's like on his way of breaking his hip. I'm like,
yeah,
Tibbs, what are
yeah,
you
bro.
doing?
It's you're there's no way you can tell. Like, I'm not even worried about a bench with New York because they're gonna play their 6, 7 guys.
Right.
But yeah, you have Mitch being a help side defender, and or I know this is gonna sound crazy, but it worked in Minnesota to a degree where you had Cat guarding the Joker and Rudy was help and Cat was all right for a little bit. That's
Mhm.
essentially what you would try to do. It's tough because you need Cat's offense. Excuse me. So you want Cat in rhythm. And I agree with you. I think if you can get him in foul trouble, can get him making stupid decisions in terms of just running into double teams, turning the ball over, he starts to, lose himself in his own head, and then he becomes really hard to play. But at the same time, I'm looking at that Knicks offense with Jalen Brunson. I don't know how Milwaukee stops it. I looked at the Milwaukee Bucks they're 12th in offensive rating, so they're getting there.
Mhm.
It's nothing to sneeze about. 12th in offensive rating, a top 10 defense. That's definitely a good sign. Um, I just I don't hate Milwaukee over New York. I think New York defensively is never going to be what you want them to be, but I don't hate that. What would it be the what would New York have to do to lose that series?
Josh Hart's a very streaky three-point shooter who has made his shots in the past. If Josh Hart goes to the bench and he's missing his threes, now when he's in the game, you can have Andre Jackson guarding him. They're guarding each other, and well, that's a lie. Andre Jackson can be put into the game and he can guard him, and then he can switch on to Brunson. And I would believe that if one of those five guys, one of them's going to be Mitch, and the other one's going to be harder, not spacing the floor, and allows the Bucks to play Andre in that series, and he's their best perimeter defender.
Mhm.
That would be the first step. The second step to me is if, of course, Mitch is not healthy, whether or not he comes back or maybe is still not right by that point. And the last part is how well Mikal and OG play, because in the all season they committed over 300 million to these two wings to be your future, your foundational pieces in the defensive end. This year, the Knicks defense is still trying to get to that point where they've been at in past years. So if Mikal Bridges is giving you good production on offense, but then on the defensive side, Damian Lillard's still dropping 28 a game on great efficiency, that is when, to me, you start to question whether or not it was worth it in the first place. And the archetype and the theory of it's maybe greater than the actual output that you're getting. So to me, for the Bucks to win that series, I think Josh Hart's got to miss his shots. Mitch is not right, whether physically or he's not on the floor. And then third, Mikal is not raising his level of defensive play. If Dame's going off, you got the ability to play a non-floor spacer like Andre Jackson. And then, of course, Giannis is getting 33 points a game, and he's being what has been this year top 3 player in the world. I will not be surprised if the Bucks upset the Knicks.
Well, yeah, per cleaning the glass, Milwaukee is 7th in points per play in the half court and 10th in points per possession. They are 30th in percentage of plays. So not many plays run in the half court, very much just going with their guys. And then on defense in the half court, 9th in points per possession, 12th in points per play. So they've been an elite unit in terms of just top 10 in half court offense, top 10 in half court defense.
Mm-hmm.
They've been essentially, or they've garnered their way to an elite status. Milwaukee over New York, that's not a terrible take. I don't hate it. I think you're starting to build the bridge. I think the bridge is starting to look very, very like it could work, and people can come over very well. Just have to see more throughout the season.
Oh, and there's one more big thing.
Talk to me.
If Chris Middleton's healthy,
they might trade him.
What are you getting for Chris Middleton at this point? Who has?
I've seen some news that they might be in the Bradley Beal sweepstakes.
That's not a sweepstakes, brother.
I don't disagree, but one thing you can say is Bradley Beal is more available than Chris Middleton.
Yeah,
and they probably put up the same production.
Middleton's played 19 games this year, and it's been around the mill. Last year, Chris Middleton versus the Pacers, you're not getting that at Bradley Beal.
No, you're not. But here's the thing: you got to get something, and Middleton might not play. That's the problem. They want just availability at this point.
Listen, you may be getting availability, but at what cost? A $50 million contract for 3 more years, which 2.5 if you're going to factor this season, and then he's got a no trade clause. Where Chris Middleton, he's an expiring contract after this year.
Wasn't it a player option?
Yeah, that's the expiring. So when he accepts, he'll have 1 year left.
Yeah, no, he's
not declining that.
No, he's no shot. He doesn't. No shot. I mean, listen, this year he's been elite in the mid range when he does play.
Mm-hmm.
He's been good in the non-corner areas from 3. So he's still a really good shooter. Just, dude, he's played 19 games.
It really is a shame because this was a championship number 2 just 3 years ago. And now he's 33 years old. He kind of was a little bit older when he broke out. I really wish we got to see him more healthy, Cash Money Chris, but either here or there.
I'll say this year, 82nd percentile in short mid range.
I mean, he's a bucket.
No, this is Bradley Beal. 57th percentile in long mid range, 40%. I think that's pretty good. Do you think that's pretty good? Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
non-corner, 37%. Corner 3, 46%. They get Bradley Beal and put him in specific spots. I'm not saying he'll give you Chris Middleton production in the playoffs. I think Chris Middleton's a better playoff performer. But also, it's been so long since Bradley Beal's been deemed relevant in the grand stage of things. So going to Milwaukee could shake up some new confidence. Maybe he goes out there, he plays really well. Maybe they bring him off the bench. He does stuff like that. So I'm just saying, I get the whole trading Chris Middleton for available guys because, granted, when Chris Middleton plays, he's really good. But it's starting to look like you're always going to have a what if with him, man.
Right. When Bradley Beal does play, because he also has injury issues. He hasn't played 60 games since the great 2021. Bradley Beal does not bring anything that the Suns need. He doesn't bring athleticism. He does not bring any modicum perimeter defense, which I was expecting. He doesn't bring enough rim pressure. But what he does bring to the table, they have a surplus of already, which is 3-level scoring. And you could make a case that if you put him alongside Giannis, who's one of the biggest athletic freaks in the NBA, and just the size that Milwaukee has in their front court, that maybe he would be better utilized and more impactful because he would bring something that's not presently there really in
Yep.
their wing part of the equation. Now we're going to wrap things up with a prospect who I recently really started to key in on, someone who's caught my attention. That's freshman guard Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. So far this year, Fears, as he should be a high school senior at this current point in time
Yep.
after he reclassified. He's averaging 17 points a game, 56% on twos, 26% on threes. But Riv, what really struck out to me when I was watching him is for him to be someone that reclassifies, playing and embracing the opportunity to play against older competition. He has been one of the best guards in the country this year. And when you get to see him play, the 3-point shot has not been going in. He's still been a 3-level scorer because gets to the foul line 6 times a game at the collegiate level. He's someone who finishes at a high level. And what I really did like to see from him was at 6'4", he plays a lot bigger as a guard who gets downhill consistently and has one of the best handles. I think it's a super tight handle in this draft class. And then to go along with that, he is a tough finisher, a good touch.
Yeah, listen, Jeremiah Fears has been one of the most surprising freshmen in the country this year. I mean, like you mentioned, he's supposed to be a high school senior right now. So he, went to Oklahoma early, and he's been a huge catalyst in their success. He's a walking confidence bucket in the sense of he has so much confidence in his game, and he's like always one of the youngest players on the court. The leadership qualities he has, and the poise he brings to his game. He plays like he's literally playing with the alpha mentality this year. I mean, he's a ultra aggressive offensive player that can kind of get to the rim, can kind of give you a little bit in the mid-range game. The handle is there. I think his game translated so quickly in college because of the confidence and the fact that he has good length and explosiveness. He doesn't have jump out the gym athleticism, but he's explosive at the right time. He kind of reminds me of Devin Harris with a little bit of a jump shot. I know some people watching might not know who Devin Harris is. Go watch some Devin Harris tape, man. This dude was just a flash on the court, and I think with Jeremiah Fears, he doesn't have that same speed, but he has that type of ability to just get to the rim and that type of offensive, confidence in his game. And when he can, like his best trait to me is taking a defender off the dribble. Like when he can get to his spots at a young age pretty quickly, he's a top 7 prospect to me. And when the college season is over, I will be going deeper into the NBA draft bag. But Jeremiah Fears is amazing, man. And I think him being so young, I think teams are going to really start to hover on building their franchise around him. I think we could see teams like Brooklyn trade up to get him. I think that would be a dope spot for him. Maybe teams like Washington, who need a foundational point guard. If they fall to 5 or 6, could be thinking about taking Fears there. If, Dylan Harper or Flagger off the board. I think Jeremiah brings that type of moxie that you kind of want in your franchise point guard.
Absolutely. The Devin Harris pull I liked a lot because he was a New Jersey net before even the Darren Williams days. So he's a forgotten all-star from some lottery teams,
He
but
played with
quality
Dirk.
guard. Exactly. And there's a couple of things that also really struck out to me. His ability to accelerate and then stop on a dime and decelerate at times reminded me of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, I don't throw around when I'm comparing a draft prospect, an MVP candidate, a superstar guard too often, but when you really watch him play in those possessions, it's the same exact style, and it's eerily reminiscent at times. I do believe the difference is that, Shea's 3 inches taller. He's better at separating, but in Fear's case, his ability to create that space with that initial first step and then his handle is really impressive to me. There's a possession versus Georgia Tech where he catches it off the dribble, drives hard left, and then basically wraps it behind his back from his left to his right with a behind the back cross without even wasting any movement right into a pull-up shot. And we saw that consistently where a defender didn't have enough time to even react to him getting the ball into a shooting pocket because of how quickly he's able to change gears, get the ball into a shooting pocket, and then rise up. For him to be shooting about almost 60% on twos at that size is pretty crazy. And I felt like his biggest improvement areas from what I've seen would be one is turnovers. He can cut some of them down because he made some good reads in a pick and roll, but 3.7 turnovers to 4.4 assists will raise the alarm for a lot of people. I felt like at times his shot selection would lead to him over dribbling, where he's trying to make a bigger play because he's more of a scorer in his heart. And then the other thing was his 3-point shot, of course. But when I watch him play, he's hit some huge shots this year. He's had some big games. Some of his best games have come up against teams like Michigan or Arizona. These are quality opponents. And specifically in that Michigan game, his best game of the season, he's tying the game with a fading 30-foot bomb. And I felt like his touch is there. His form looks all right. And really, to me, I think it's a sample that's pretty small that kind of leads you to believe he's maybe not a quality shooter, but I'm expecting his 3-point shot to improve quite a bit. And if it does, you're looking at a pretty complete score. And I mean, he's got a Zero Fears nickname. I think this is someone who can really translate well to the NBA.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about situation because I feel like outside the top two guys, situation is going to play a heavy part in you becoming a star or not. And I think Jeremiah Fears has star in his future. It's just about, like you mentioned, can he fix up the little things? Can he fix up the jumper a little bit? Can he be more of a distributor? I feel like in Oklahoma, though, being at 18 years old, 17 years old, the team's on your back, doing what he's been able to do with that team, it brings you a different level of confidence that, all right, what he did in college, I feel like we can trust in this guy to give it a go in the NBA.
That's very valid. Now, is there anything else you'd like to highlight before we wrap up and get out of here?
Go Eagles, go Bills, man.
Yeah,
Question, John. Question. Actually, I have a question. You're looking at the West, right? And right now, Dallas is good. Let's have fun. I'm gonna round off one quick little. I guess you can call it a topic, whatever. I have the 1 through 8 playoffs, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you, contender or pretender? If they're not a pretender, they don't always have to be a pretender. They can always be in the middle of just competitive. So I'll let you.
Like
Matter
you
of fact,
mean like there's 2 levels of contention and they're the second level, not the first level?
yes. I'm gonna give you a tiers option. So in the West, we have a gauntlet of really good teams. I would say the Warriors are and the Spurs are like the teams that are like they're mid.
Mhm.
You can even argue their ass, but
Yeah.
one through 12, I'll let you tier it. So tier
Oh.
1 would be the championship teams who you think can make a
What a
final.
series.
No. Tier 1 can make a finals,
Yep.
make a conference finals and win it. Tier 2 is a team that can win a playoff series or
Mhm.
two. And
That's what I said.
tier 3 is a team that can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
OKC,
Oh, they're top tier contention.
tier 1. Okay. Houston Rockets, well, I feel like it's the tricky one.
They're tier 2. They remind me of the Grizzlies maybe 3 years ago because their defense is so strong and they're going to translate with their athleticism to the playoffs. But in a 7-game playoff series where things really do congest, the question is whether or not Alperen Şengün or Jalen Green will raise their level of play. So I'll go for tier 2.
The Memphis Grizzlies, a team who's up their half-court offense but has struggled with that in the playoffs.
Won 6 straight games. We have a Riv Academy dropping on the Grizzlies with Hampton Sports today. Fun fact. Look at that. We're going to go with the Grizzlies being, top of tier 2. They're in that Rocket tier. I think the Rockets are less established. The Grizzlies are the most established in that tier for sure.
Yeah, I do think John Morant, him, I guess, struggling. I think he's more right this year. I really feel like he's been more dealing with the referees and going through stuff mentally, which is and trying to get that jumper right, which has kind of altered his points per game. But I think Jaren's been great. John Morant is the key to them going anywhere because if he does not up his usual playoff raising, then they're going to be in some
Not
big
going to go
trouble.
anywhere.
Denver.
Oh, come on. I know they had a tough loss last night. They got killed by the T-Wolves, but they're still a top-tier contender to me with the Thunder. And quite honestly, you can say Oklahoma City matches up super well, but the Nuggets right now are playing their best basketball, and those are the 2 clear ones in the Western Conference to me.
Hidden now being a 5th seed, the Los Angeles Lakers.
Lakers to me are in the same tier as the Rockets, but I have them below the Grizzlies because I know they're getting Vando back. They have DFS playing to some solid ball for them, and Reeves as well is doing his thing now with more opportunity. But I still look at really their lack of versatility, and I think they're a very limited team that needs everything to go right for them. And quite honestly, I don't think LeBron is the same level of a difference maker he was a year or two ago.
Next team, the Clippers.
Clippers to me, wow, that's a fourth team we're putting in this tier
And
2.
Kawhi's back.
Kawhi is back. Big win last night versus the Bucks. To me, the reason why I have, if I'm listing this tier and organizing it, they're above the Lakers, they're above the Rockets as well. It's because their defense is also superb this year. And with Kawhi coming back, you just need 3 months of high level basketball from him. And I think you can get that.
7th seed Minnesota.
Minnesota's tier 3. They're pretenders. They're in jeopardy of missing the playoffs. They had a great, cute win last night. It's not going to stay that way. Sorry, James. I'm sorry, James.
8th seed, unfortunate, but Phoenix Suns, team we all had expectations of being a really good regular season team.
Absolutely. They're a pretender as well, but I wouldn't even call them a pretender because they're not really a playoff caliber team unless they get Bradley Beal. But if they get Bradley Beal, I still don't view them as
You mean Jimmy Butler?
Yeah, Jesus, John.
You said
Even if
Bradley
they
Beal's
get Jimmy Butler, I still don't look at them better than the Grizzlies because they have so many holes in the front court and at point guard. So if I were to slightly reorganize this, I would say the Lakers are pretenders.
Mhm.
The Clippers are tier 2 contender to me. I have more confidence really in them translating to the playoffs. But then in the case of the Suns, I think they're a clear pretender.
And then the 9th seed, which I feel like this team still should get their respect. They've just been dealing with a ton of injuries. The Dallas Mavericks.
Mavericks to me are a tier 1 contender with the Nuggets and the Thunder.
Okay, and then the final team in the 10th seed, because who cares about outside the plan? The Sacramento Kings, who've been making a bit of a late charge as of late.
They have lost 2 straight games at the hand of Nikola Jokic, and also the Knicks last night did blow them out pretty good. The Kings' offense has been amazing. I mean, this recent stretch versus the Rockets, they had 132. They had 123 versus the Warriors, and then 120 last couple of nights. The Kings' offense is legit. My question with Sacramento is their defense. I think Doug Christie has done a wonderful job replacing Mike Brown, and I am tempted to put them in that second tier above the Lakers. But I'm going to be quite honest. I think there's a ceiling on this team, and it's not because of their quality role players like Malik Monk, Keon Ellis, Stephon Carter, who they're not willing to trade him in a Cam Johnson deal. I agree. But I think there's a very clear ceiling with this team. It's why I say they are a pretender to me.
Okay, so I like that. So just to round it off, you had OKC in tier 1, you had Denver in tier 1, and you have Dallas in tier 1. Tier 2, you had Memphis, you have Houston, you have the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 3 is where you round off everybody else, which is the Lakers, Minnesota, Phoenix, and the Kings.
Yep.
All right, I like that. That's a good list. I think I would agree. I think people are sleeping on Dallas. People are calling OKC the overwhelming favorites. I don't agree with that. I think OKC also has some holes they need to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Dallas and Denver could definitely give them a run for their money. I think for those 3 teams, if they don't make the WCF, it is an extreme failure of a season.
Oh, easily, especially in the Nuggets case, because you have Westbrook on one of the best value deals of the offseason. I mean, he's been playing so well as of late, and I didn't expect it. I know none of us really expected him to fit as well off of Jokic as he has.
Mhm.
So this is a new window for them. With him replacing Bruce Brown, it is now automatically become, okay, they're good enough to win a championship this season.
Yeah, and I think we could, like, right now, if playoffs stand, we'll get OKC and Phoenix. If Phoenix is healthy, I think, well, yeah, just because I don't feel like doing who wins the play-in. But if OKC and Phoenix see each other right now, that's a banger series if they're healthy. You know, even if we believe OKC can win. And then you have Houston and Minnesota. I think that's fire. Memphis versus the Clippers, that's a lit series, which the Clippers could potentially upset Memphis. And then we'll see Denver and the Lakers again, which I think we should swap Lakers and Dallas, and then we'll have a real banger of a playoffs, you know?
I agree. Well said. Now, we have a great weekend, a great day of football ahead of us. Praying to the football gods that Josh Allen can finally do it. Look, I have to go to a Chiefs-only bar with my family if the fucking Chiefs win the team. I can't do it. I'm done. Sick and tired of this bullshit. Soon enough for having them catching up to the Steelers in Super Bowls. No, I'm not doing it. I need the Bills to win, and I need Jane Daniels to light a fire in that Philadelphia secondary. We get a Bills-Commanders Super Bowl. It's going to be a good day. But if we get the exact opposite, you won't be hearing from me. You won't be hearing from me.
Bills what?
Bills Commanders.
What's wrong with you, man?
I don't like Philly.
Because we run Pennsylvania.
Never have.
Why We run
Never have.
Pennsylvania. We own your Steelers, dude. Own them.
Never will. So with all that being said, it's going to wrap up episode 12, Objectively Biased. No James today. He is doing a master class. Looking forward to having him back next week. And best be sure that once he is back, we're going to find a consistent rhythm with the three of us. But until then, stay biased.